Something I've been curious about these days is horned gods.
Mm,
And I was thinking in particular about Baal and Baphomet. Do you have any thoughts
yeah,
on those creatures?
on Baal and Baphomet. Baphomet, I think, is a very Baphomet's an interesting figure. Like the image of Baphomet created by Eliphas Levi. And then you also have the Baphomet connection to the Templars. Um,
Do you know if it was only if that creature is that as far back as we can trace its conception to the Templars?
oh, dude, you want to get into like what I actually think about Baphomet, like what I think Baphomet is? I think Baphomet is more of a title that different entities take on, and then they appear this way to people.
Explain that a little.
I think that's what happened with Eliphas Levi when he came up with the image of the Baphomet. Like he was in communication, or yeah, he was in communication with something, and it was that's the visage that it came to him as.
Mm. Do you have
Um,
suspicions as to what entities it might be in particular?
I don't think that they are. I don't have a specific type of entity that I've attached to it, but this is kind of what I've gathered from the different, especially from the different uses that it's kind of had, like the image of Baphomet, um, like going from Eliphas Levi when to tell you the truth, when I read him, he sounds just like a very hippied Christian, like it's
Christian.
that's yeah, Eliphas Levi. If you go and read what he was saying, he was incredible. Like the church called him heretical, but he was very much into love, like the power of love.
I can't say I know too much about him. What's his story and what do
I
you make
don't.
of him?
I'm not too particularly familiar with this story. I just remember when I read Eliphas Levi, like his text that you can go and read them. They've been translated to English, and it's like, oh, this is a very like he talks about brotherly love a lot, like in relation to Christ, and talks about becoming one with Christ. Um, yeah, the
Interesting.
church called that heretical, but it was just I think that he expressed it like too liberally, for a what was that, like the 15th century?
Was it really 15th?
I believe so.
Oh, I
I
thought
could
he
look
was.
it up right now.
Yeah. In any case, I'm just so I don't know. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around how Baphomet's not very much a Christian thing, though. You know?
No, no, no. I do think that Baphomet has kind of been. I think this with a multitude of symbols, and I think that there are like the symbols become co-opted the same way a cause would be co-opted, and it turns into something else. You
Interesting.
understand what I'm connected there?
I
Yeah,
do,
I think
because
that,
I'm
yeah.
familiar with the symbolism behind the creature, but yeah, yeah, it's something interesting to think about. Ball, do you have any thoughts on Ball?
No, not necessarily on ball, other than like the sort of Malachian connections that I think of when I think of ball.
Yeah, the reason I brought up those two in particular was because I was curious about like the conception, like it because I was wondering if Baphomet was like a pagan god before, you know,
Oh yeah,
and
I
if he
definitely
came
believe
from
that's
that, yeah.
possible. Yeah, I definitely believe that that's possible. I think Baphomet might be older than even Eliphas Levi, just not as accurately depicted, like there wasn't like a skilled hand behind the brush. I think that there are kind of more animate, like when we look at like cave paintings or even like more pagan symbols, I think that there's like we see things that kind of look like Baphomet.
Horn gods, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which other
Yeah.
are those the two horned gods that you've been looking into? Like have you been into Pan at
Those were
all?
the ones in particular.
Ceranos? Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I'm aware of the others, but just those two in particular. I was thinking about them. I
Yeah.
don't know,
I
but
think those are super connected to the Abraham, well, kind of, yeah, kind of peripheral to where the Abrahamic faiths developed, and were incredibly strong.
yeah. Well, yeah. Just something I've been thinking about, really. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, those are interesting figures for sure. Like those are some very powerful symbols, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever discussed this with you, but I feel like you would be the type of person to discuss it with, where like the more you learn about things like that, the less they seem to scare you, so to speak.
Yeah, they're definitely way less scary. Like kind of earlier in my like when I was a younger Christian, like even pentagrams were kind of like weird to me. And now it's like, oh, okay, it's a pentagram.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to like the symbols are certainly still powerful and potentially dangerous, but I meant more like, it's just not all that you can just study that and not really be bothered by it necessarily.
Oh yeah. I think when you get too deep, there's certainly a level of being too deep, you know.
Has it ever gotten too deep and you wouldn't mind sharing where it got too deep for you?
Uh, I've definitely stayed away from I think when I was earlier on and being incredibly poetic, I was more captured, into like going into the depths of things. But now I'm more like diving into things that I feel like are lighter, It's more so flying into the sky rather than going into the depths of the ocean.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue away from this. I'm like looking back at it, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I should be putting this out there.
Just go.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Baphomet and Ball. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting
Yeah.
stuff.